My friends at Easy Cater are workplace catering pros, helping you find food for everything from daily employee meals to staff meetings and special events. Visit easycater.com/leaderassistant to find out more.
I'm Sara McKay. Today's leadership quote comes from Dolly Parton. If your actions create a legacy that inspires others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you're an excellent leader.
The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become confident, game-changing leader assistants.
Hey friends, it's your host, Jeremy Burrows, and I just wanted to let you know a little bit about today's sponsor. The Leader Assistant Podcast is brought to you by Goody. With employee burnout at all-time highs, it's so important to make your team feel appreciated and recognized. With Goody, you can connect your HR system and automatically send gifts for employees' birthdays and work anniversaries. Talk about automating before your role is automated. It's a modern, hands-free way to show your team members how much you appreciate them. Goody is free to start gifting, and you can get a $20 credit when you sign up. Be sure to mention the Leader Assistant podcast, and Goody will add an extra $10 credit to your account. Go to leaderassistant.com/Goody to give Goody a try. Hey friends, thanks for tuning in to the Leader Assistant podcast. It's your host, Jeremy Burrows. Welcome to episode 179. You can check out the show notes for this episode at leaderassistant.com/179. And today I'm excited to be joined by, Sara McKay. That's right. Sara, how's it going?
Hey, Jeremy, I'm well. How are you doing?
Doing okay. Just trying to keep everything straight and remember who I'm talking to, just a normal day in the life of an assistant, right?
Yes, I know that's right. Fair enough.
And okay, so you're executive assistant at a company called Wave. Tell us about your role and what your company does.
Yeah, so super exciting. I work at a music tech startup called Wave, and they do live virtual concerts in the metaverse. Company started about 6 years ago by two incredible tech guys that had an idea, and it really took off during COVID. We actually just got nominated for an MTV Music Award. We found out. Yeah.
That's fun.
2 days ago, MTV added a metaverse category, and our Justin Bieber concert that was aired in November of 2021 is nominated. So you guys can go vote if you want to. But yeah, it's an incredible company. It's mostly remote. We do have a studio in Los Angeles, but the majority of our engineers and whatnot are all over the US. And I support primarily the CEO and co-founder. But I also, as EAs do, help wherever I'm needed. So it's been fun. I've been doing all different kinds of things I've been there 5 months.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. And congrats to your team on the nomination. That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about your career journey to get here. How did you end up being an assistant?
As a lot of assistants, I think I hear on this podcast say, I kind of fell into it. I am from Michigan, a small town, but Metro Detroit is home, where I actually am right now. And I went to Wayne State University and studied public relations. I was always kind of interested in journalism and pop culture. And I thought, PR would be great. So I started interning at a PR firm, a music PR firm, my senior year of college, and then was hired on as an assistant publicist. So that was kind of my first taste of being an assistant. I helped a lot with the campaigns, but also, did the assistant stuff, helping with the office and being the right hand to the lead publicist. Unfortunately, my mom got sick during that time. And that's when I really kind of realized that I was a great right hand, just realizing I could go to school, help her work a job and keep it all together. I really realized, okay, yeah, I'm great at helping people. That's where I thrive. And it's always kind of been that way. When I moved to Los Angeles 5 years ago, I started as a production assistant in working in film. And then I did some coordinating jobs and eventually found myself supporting a showrunner as a very entry level executive assistant role. And then after that, I worked for a fashion designer, which was my first real kind of executive assistant, personal assistant, big, role. And it was a great learning experience. I really kind of got thrown into the fire and wasn't the best fit, unfortunately, but that's okay. Then I worked at a beauty agency. And I started there in the beginning of 2019. And we worked with like Jennifer Lopez's makeup artist, Beyonce's hairstylist, all kinds of different beauty artists in Los Angeles. And it was incredible. And I loved it. And I got to wear so many hats. And I was even doing, some like junior agent work. And then COVID hit, of course. So things slowed down there. And I went back to film when the world started to open up again. The agency I was working with, unfortunately, was not as busy to bring me back on, but I had some friends that were still in production that brought me onto some roles. And I worked on a couple Bravo shows, you might know, $1 Million Listing Los Angeles and Real Housewives of Los Angeles. And which was fun, but the hours are crazy and it's just not sustainable. And I had been looking for something, to harness my skills in the EA world. And it was like serendipity. The recruiter at Wave found me as my contract was ending on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And I hadn't heard of Wave, and I'll always have a conversation. So anyone that reaches out to me, I always think it's good to have a conversation. And even if it's always good to have a conversation, practice, whatever. And as I talked to the recruiter and did some research on Wave, I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And I say this to everyone. I've never gone through an interview process where I not only had rapport, but I felt like I could hang out with every single person I talked to. Everyone was awesome. And I was like, this is definitely a company I want to be at. These are the kind of people I want to work with. And I started in early 2022, and I don't think I'll ever look back. It's been a journey, an incredible journey. It was a little tough at first because it was my first completely remote role. Like I've had roles, with COVID, things went remote, but I've never started at a job where it starts off remote. But we've done a great job at working together, and it's such an incredible team. And my president says it perfectly. He says we're a case study in creating remote culture. And we really pride ourselves on that because we do a lot. Like I'm one of the leads. We have social pods that we call them throughout the US, and I'm the lead on the SoCal social pod. So, I'm putting together an event for the SoCal group, and then we have like the Northeast group, and it's really cool that we're finding ways to stay in touch. And we have all these different Slack channels, and we do virtual, team building events and things like that, while these incredible engineers are developing magic. And then, I'm so honored to support the CEO, who is just incredible. I have a little bit of imposter syndrome sometimes, but it's been an incredible experience. So there's my long-winded answer.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for sharing. So tell us about the remote work thing. So what does that mean? What did you call it? The chapter? Is that what you said? The regional director or whatever of your social remote thing?
Yes. So we have, we call them social pods. There's
social pod. That's what it was.
Yeah. Social pods. We have Northern California, Southern California, the Northeast, Southeast, which kind of merges with Northeast because there aren't too many people there. And so when I started, I knew one of the big things they needed help on was a company retreat. They'd been wanting to bring the entire team together. So that was one of my first big projects. I started in February, early February. At the end of April, I had put together this company retreat in Santa Monica where everyone flew in. And so it was wild and it was awesome. And then, that kind of got our gears turning. And, I sat down with the president, and we just hired our HR director. She met us for the first time at the company retreat. And we all kind of got together and said, we need to keep this going and keep this camaraderie going. Many of these people had never seen anyone else face to face. So we developed the social pods. We have the micro and macro pods, macro obviously coming together at our company retreat, which we plan to do once a year. But then we have, like I said, the SoCal pod is doing something next month where we're getting together in the Northeast pod. But then some of the pods, like Southeast, is smaller. So they're going to join the Northeast. And if anyone from Texas is available to come join the SoCal pod, we'll invite them with us. And then we also do virtual trivia. We're looking into doing virtual cooking classes and all kinds of gaming nights, all kinds of cool things.
Wow. So lots of intentional activities for coming together so that you don't lose that social relational connection, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Nice. So let's stay on the topic of remote work for just a minute. What is one of the ways that you've seen your team or that you've done yourself to stay kind of alert or in the know, or even read your executive's mind when you're not in the same room as them? What are some practical things you've done to really get past that disconnect, other than obviously the social in-person things?
Sure. So that is an interesting question. It was tough at first. When I started, I demanded a lot of one-on-ones with my executive. We do a lot of Zoom calls. And fortunately, I feel like I'm pretty intuitive and empathetic. And thank goodness my exec and we really just kind of got each other pretty well. But I bug him probably more than he would like. I ask him a lot of questions, because I feel like it's, you don't know until you know. So I'd rather bug him and get the correct answer than guess. And he is also like, we've learned our ways to communicate, and he's pretty good at being like, letting me know things that are high priority. And we do have our one-on-ones every Friday. So we go over the schedule and we talk about, what we need to do for the next week, who we are still trying to get in touch with, et cetera. And he lets me know, the levels of priority. And now, as I mentioned, I'm still a little newer. So now I'm going to start sitting in on some of the calls and, taking notes and being more of a fly on the wall so that I can absorb things more. I do one-on-ones with the president as well, which is awesome because he's great when my exec my CEO doesn't have time. I can always pick his brain. And honestly, everyone has been so available to me. It's been great, and no one's ever made me feel like a question is dumb. They're always, ask any question. And that has been so helpful. And it's just a really great team.
Yeah. It helps when you work with great people, right?
Yeah, it really does. We hit the jackpot.
Oh, love it. Love it. So let's talk about being a new assistant. So you're, relatively new to this organization, maybe being a new assistant at a new company, or even just a new role at your current company. It can be scary, new environment. You're not comfortable with people yet. You mentioned when you filled out the survey for the podcast, I asked you a few questions, and you mentioned talking about being a new assistant, and you said you immediately think of, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about, maybe tips or your experience of being a new assistant in a new organization, and how can those listening really take the reins on a new opportunity like that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yes, with great, yes, we hold the reins, assistants. As we all know, we do all of the behind the scenes work, which is one of the things I do love about being an assistant. I just realized being in production might have fed to that because, making TV, I've always been behind the scenes, but I think, as I mentioned, there's never a dumb question. I think you really have to involve yourself as much as you can, be that fly on the wall, talk to as many people as you can, ask if you can sit in on meetings. My first real assistant job, which I would say was with the fashion designer, it was also actually remote, but it wasn't supposed to be. It was just the assistant or the exec wasn't as available. And it was very overwhelming. And I think you have to take things one step at a time instead of looking at your entire list of to-dos or the calendar, which can look crazy. Be like, okay, I'm going to focus on today. What does today look like? What do I need to get done for today? What do I need my exec's calendar to be like for today? I know when I started this job, I was working with 3 execs calendars. My first day, I looked at the calendar. I was like, oh my gosh, no. But now I look at it and I'm like, I got this, easy peasy. It's just, you take it one step at a time. And I really think asking questions is the biggest thing. And, trying to connect with other people in the company. I reach out to the engineers, the marketing team, anyone, and just say, hey, I'm new here. Like, what do you do? How long have you been here? Any sort of questions, intel, connections you can make, that's going to benefit you in the long run. And I also, wasn't super privy to the metaverse when I started this job, but I've been, doing on my downtime, doing research on it, just absorbing as much as I can and trying to learn. I think that's the best advice I could give. And just, don't get overwhelmed, one step at a time. I make a lot of lists too. I love my digital lists and my notebook.
Nice. What do you use for keeping track of your digital lists?
I'm super basic. I do this Mac stickies note, but I have like a formatting way. I've tried to use OneNote and other programs, but this just works best for me. It's on my desktop at all times. I have it formatted in the way I need it. And then I also have a notebook that I'll take with me if I might not necessarily be able to have my computer or phone right next to me,
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I always talk about it doesn't matter what tool you use. It just matters the tactics that you employ with those tools. And so if those tools work for you, then they work for you.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love it. And if I'm somewhere where I know I can't write it down right away, I'll send myself an email. Say I'm at dinner with a friend or something, and my boss is like, I need you to do this. I'll send myself an email, with what needs to be done so that I'll see it next time I can check my email or I'm at my computer, whatever. Yeah. That's also very helpful.
Nice. So you mentioned when you started at Wave, you didn't know anything about the metaverse. I've heard from a few assistants, even just this week, who are looking for a new job opportunity, and they've been interviewing and they've gotten far and people seem to really connect and like them, but then they don't have that subject matter expertise for the industry. Mm-hmm. And so how did you overcome that? How did you communicate that, listen, I can learn about your industry. I don't have to know your industry in order for my skills to be transferable?
Right, right. Well, you just said it. I think especially being an EA, our skills are transferable. So confidence is definitely one thing. I will say having a music and production background helped me, but just expressing an interest, I think that's huge. It's better. You have to be willing and able. It's better to be, willing than able. If you're able to do it, but you're not willing, then, that's a problem. So expressing confidence and interest is huge, but yeah, the cards just kind of aligned. We're a very new company, and I did have the music. It's funny. I didn't entirely know what I was getting into until I got into it. And my mind constantly blown by what this company does. And it's so fascinating. But I think, if you can show that you're able to learn and take on new things, then people are going to be attracted to that. I worked at a beauty agency. I didn't know much about beauty, but things are transferable, and you just have to be willing and able to step up and show that you'll take initiative and do what is needed. And I'm constantly researching on my downtime. I'm constantly trying to learn about even startups and just the mechanics of how everything in the tech world works. And I would definitely do that. If there's a company you're interested in, research as much of it as you can before an interview. Know as much of it as you can.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. So, okay, you have some fun experience in entertainment, music, all that media industry, beauty industry. Any crazy stories that you can share, or funny stories you can share, or both?
One of the this is in the entertainment. It always sticks out to me. One of the craziest experiences of my life in LA, rather, was living at Jared Leto's house, working on a documentary with him. I was new to LA, and I had applied for a researcher position, it was a documentary. So it's, looking up facts and fact checking things and whatever. And I thought that it's so funny. I thought I had gotten the job, didn't hear back from the production manager the next day. And I was like, oh, I guess they didn't want me after all. And then this number started calling me the next day. And it was a production manager. And she said, oh, we do want you to work for us. Can you be here at noon? And she texts me an address. I'm like, sure. And so I'm like getting around. She goes, by the way, we're at Jared Leto's house. I'm like, what? I find out when I get there that I'm working on a Jared Leto documentary. It's called The Day in the Life of America. We shot in all 50 states on the 4th of July. He calls it an apolitical portrait of America. We followed all different walks of life on the 4th of July. It was actually pretty incredible. And I ended up getting promoted to the story coordinator because I ended up producing several of the stories, coordinating shoots and things like that. But I mean, I'm not kidding. We lived at Jared Leto's house. We had air mattresses in our office. Wow. And we were working, in all the time zones around the clock. And it was all women on our team. It was really incredible. And that right after that is when I got my first CA role. I think that experience really kind of showed me like, wow, I can juggle anything. I can do anything. It was intense. It was wild, but we did it.
Wow. Yeah. It's pretty interesting how the entertainment world and the startup world have similarities in the sense of, you always hear these stories of startups that started in a garage or like a bunch of, guys in a dorm, working all night. So yeah, I'm sure that's an experience you will never forget. So
definitely.
And you learn how to adapt and be on your feet and figure things out, I'm sure.
Yes, exactly. It was, yes. We now have people calling me. I mean, I remember walking into work and being asked to do this one specific kind of wild thing. Find a jail we can film in, a prison we can film in. And I'm like, what? In Georgia. And I'm like, okay, but I did it,
Yeah.
So you push yourself to the limit, and then you realize like, wow, I really can do that. And it was that was just it. It's like, wow, I can make things happen. So if I start to doubt myself, I have to remind myself of all the things I have done. I'm like, I got this. I can do that. I got this.
Awesome. Good deal, Sara. Well, thanks for sharing. Just excited to hear different stories and hear about your career and your insights. So the last question that I'd ask a lot of my guests is, in your mind, what makes an assistant a leader?
I always hear this on your podcast, and I always think about this. And I think, it's just not being afraid to ask the questions. We are so behind the scenes, but it's okay to not always have all of the answers. It's okay to involve other people. Just not being afraid to, ask questions, to not have all the answers sometimes, but finding that confidence in yourself and within your team, just being open, I think, Yeah.
Yeah. Well said. Thank you so much. And how can people reach out and say hi to you? Where can they find you?
I am on Instagram. It's Sara, C as in cat, McKay, MCKAY, and that's no H, SARAC McKay. And same with LinkedIn. I have my LinkedIn is Sara C. McKay as well.
Perfect. Well, I will link to those both in the show notes at leaderassistant.com/179. So you guys can check out Sara's profile and reach out and say hi and connect. But thanks again, Sara, for being on the show. I really appreciate it. And thanks for being a podcast listener as well.
Thank you, Jeremy. This was wonderful. I appreciate you. Thanks for all that you do for us.
Please review on Apple Podcasts. GoBulls.com